What is going on, guys? It's your friendly neighborhood Dinozords here with the first video in probably over a year that has decent quality. I know you guys are excited. I made my 8 video quota for the year, by the way, everyone. I hope you guys are excited. I actually made 9 videos this year, not including these videos if they get out. So I'm going to be doing a top 10 comics list of 2016. I'm going to be doing a top 10 movies of 2016 and a top 10 games of 2016. The hardest list to make so far has been the games list, because I guess I just didn't play that many games this year. I thought I played a good bit of games, but it was really hard picking 10 games that actually deserve to be on a top 10 list, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and get it started with the top 10 comics of this year. I'm going to go ahead and preface this by saying I've not been reading a lot of Marvel comics this year, and subsequently there are literally no Marvel comics on my top 10 list. There are, however, 2 indie books, and they're pretty high up, so we'll start off with number 10. Teen Titans, the new Rebirth book. I've been really enjoying this book. I did not expect to enjoy the art for this book, because seeing the preview for the first cover, I thought, wow, that looks pretty terrible. But how in practice, I've actually grown on it. Reading the book, I've really grown on it. I think the art is really spot on. It works super well for a Teen Titans book, in my opinion. So I've really been enjoying this book. We're only 3 issues in, and that's including the one-shot that sort of set up the book. And reading just the one-shot, I was really skeptical. I thought the book was going to be bad. I don't think it set it up very well, but then the first issue, I think, did very well to do what maybe the one-shot did poorly. And then the second issue, I thought, got the story moving really well, and I've been really enjoying it so far. The second book is another book that took me by storm. I did not expect to like this book at all, but I just picked it up one day on a whim, and that's New Superman. Now, this book is a completely new character who's taken up the mantle of Superman, but in China, and his name's Kong Kenan, if I remember correctly. And it is really interesting. We got this character who starts off as a bully, which is the complete opposite of Superman, who's his entire life been a completely altruistic character, been a salt of the earth Kansas boy or whatever. And this character is a literal bully, walking around up to people in Hong Kong, China, and like beating them up for their lunch money. And then he gets imbued with the power of Superman. However, there's like some caveats. And this book is really interesting because it's cool to see somebody who's an asshole get the powers of Superman, and then sort of realize what that power entails. Like, obviously, if you're gonna be Superman, you can't be running around beating up on fucking kids for their lunch money. Like, that kind of makes you more of an asshole than just a fat kid running around beating kids up for their lunch money. So, I don't know, I really like that book. If you guys are interested at all, definitely try to pick up the first issue. I think you'll probably be hooked from the first issue. I think it does a very good job of setting it up and getting it off the ground really quickly. And moving on to number 8, Superman, another book that pretty much all the DC Rebirth books really took me by surprise. I figured I'd try Superman. I had some extra money that week. I was just like, whatever, I'll fucking buy Superman. And I really loved it. This new Superman that they've got going on is the Superman from before the New 52 happened, who essentially like hopped in like a tunnel or something through space and time and just decided, hey, I'm gonna live in the New 52 universe, which is now the Rebirth universe. And then the old Superman from the New 52 dies. It's this whole long thing, but now he's just the only Superman other than this Chinese Superman guy. But he's the only Superman, and he's got a child, and he's married to Lois, and seeing him have a child and a wife make him essentially it makes him human, you know what I mean? Like, the thing about Superman is that he's extremely hard to relate to because he's fucking immortal, quite literally. Like, the guy can't die. Even when he dies, he just fucking goes into a coma, comes back to, like, he just wakes up from his fucking coma, breaks out of his coffin, flies out of the ground, and you're good. Which is just lame. Like, who wants to read a fucking book about somebody who literally can't be fucking hurt? Like, it's ridiculous. Nobody wants to read that. But when you add in the chains of a child, especially one that has at least like halfway the powers of Superman, this new Superboy is his son. It makes it really interesting. You get to see Superman be a dad, and it's as interesting to me as seeing Batman be a dad, because they're two opposite ends of the spectrum, you know what I mean? Like, even though Batman's like, I don't know, he's kind of a shitty dad, Superman is a very good dad. Like, he takes, in one of the issues, I think it's like issue 7, he takes Superboy and Lois, he takes them to the fucking fair, and then he's like, no, I promise there won't be any Supermaning, and then, of course, something happens, and he's gotta be Superman for the day. But I really love this book. Seeing his interactions with Lois and with his son have been super fun. And then this newest arc where Batman and Superman are putting their kids together and they're teaching them a lesson is really cool, and I appreciate that a lot. Very fun to see them be dads together. Number 7 is going to be Batman, written by Tom King. Mainly talking about the first arc here. The first arc of Batman, I read the one-shot that came out before the initial run, and I read the one-shot and I just thought it was kind of trash. Turns out that was because it was dealing with shit from the New 52 that I didn't know about, I didn't read about, so I was entirely out of the loop. But then eventually, like most of these books, I tried them out on a whim because I had extra money that week for comics, and tried Batman #1, and I was like, oh, this is really fun. Like, the first issue of Batman, you've got him trying to stop a plane from crashing, and he's fucking Batman, so he can't fly. The Justice League is busy, and all these other things that stop him from being able to, help this plane that's about to crash into Gotham. But regardless of the fact that, he tries to call in the Justice League, which in and of itself is a hard thing for Batman. Regardless of that, he does whatever it takes, even going to the point of possibly dying to save this plane filled with, like 200 people or whatever. It really shows how altruistic Batman is at the end of the day, even though I think it is slightly off character for Batman to just essentially give up like he does at the end of the first issue. But regardless, if you want to read more about that book, I definitely would check it out. I'll leave links to all the books I'm talking about in the description of this video, so make sure if you're interested in any of them to check them out, because you need to support your comic books. At number 6, we have The Flash. Now, this book, again, just a real surprise to me. I saw the character design for Godspeed, which is the villain in this book, and he's a new speedster who's got a fucking incredible costume. Like, just from the costume alone, I was super excited about this book, but after actually starting to read it, I thought this is one of the best DC books currently, and if not of the New 52 as well. It was very good, very fun. I liked a lot of the art, but I do think a lot of the art was somewhat obtuse and abstract sometimes. I love the use of the lightning for the characters who had Speed Force, and this entire story basically comes about by, there's a huge Speed Force storm that happens, which is kind of contrived, but whatever, at the end of the day, it's to serve the story, and basically imbues like hundreds of people in fucking Keystone or wherever fucking city they're in, imbues like 100 people or 200 people with the power of the Speed Force. And, obviously some of them are going to be kind of good with their powers and be altruistic and whatnot, but then some of the people are going to be starting to rob banks and starting to kill people and do this, that, and the other. So Flash has to go around and start trying to stop these people. But all the while, one of his friends from the police department actually gets the powers too. And he's got to teach this guy how to be a fucking superhero, all the while knowing that this guy is probably likely to use the powers to get revenge, which, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's a fucking great story. I think it's the first 9 issues of the book that has that story, and then I'm not too hot on this new arc that they're running with the darkness bullshit. Not that into it, but I really can't wait for them to bring back Godspeed. I think that's going to be a very, very fun arc to read when that comes out. But yeah, definitely pick up The Flash. That's been one of the greatest ones, especially if you're into the TV show. I think you'll really enjoy this, and I honestly believe that they'll probably end up using Godspeed on the TV show, because they have like no idea how to use a villain on the TV show that's not a fucking speedster, and they're eventually going to run out of old-time speedsters, so hopefully eventually they use Godspeed. And at number 5, we have one of my favorite, if not, no, this is definitely my favorite DC Universe Rebirth book, and that's Green Arrow. The art in this book by Juan Ferreira is some of my favorite art I've ever seen in a comic book, and I'm being 100% genuine and honest when I say that. It is some of my favorite art. It's like watercolored and like really nice pencils. I fucking love this art. Like whenever I comment on art, it's because I really love it. Like most of the time it kind of flies by me. I don't really care that much as long as it's serviceable. I'm completely fine with it. But in this book, I fucking love the art. And honestly, if I fucking go to a convention this year and Juan Ferreira is there, I'll pay money to get a commission. And I would never say that about any other artist except for maybe Greg Capullo. But other than that, like this guy's just, his art is unique and interesting and fun, and it makes the book that much more fun. And I would just definitely recommend reading it, if nothing else, for Juan Ferreira's art alone. But the other artist they have is also very good, serviceable. It's not my favorite, obviously, but it's good. And then the art, or the writing, is also some of the best Green Arrow writing I think I've seen since I started reading comics with the New 52. I don't think much of anything from the New 52 in terms of Green Arrow stuff was good. Even when they did the whole creator switch up, I didn't think it was that good. And quite frankly, I found the art to be esoteric and annoying to look at. I did not like it. It's very abstract. It was like reading a fucking Green Arrow book that was drawn by Picasso. It was absurd. But at the end of the day, I think this book is one of the best ones. I think the first arc in specific is incredible. And I think that goes for a lot of the arcs with the DC Universe Rebirth. A lot of the first arcs, I don't know how long they had, but I feel like they might have had more time than they did with their second arcs, because a lot of the first arcs are coming off much better written specifically. Like the arts continued to be good, but the writing specifically has seemed a lot better with the first arcs. So definitely pick up the first arc. It's very interesting. I really loved it. I think you guys will enjoy it too, especially if you guys are into the Green Arrow TV show. I think this is easily better than pretty much every season of Green Arrow, except for maybe 2. Number 4, here we get into the indie books. Now I know some of you guys are probably not going to be interested in this, but I do really recommend you listen to this part, because I think if I explain it to you, you might really be interested. A lot of you guys are probably into fucking, old like 80s television or old 80s movies and stuff like that. 80s culture is really big right now. Well, Paper Girls takes place in like the 80s, and you got these like 4 girls or 3 girls, whatever it was, and they wake up one morning, they're doing their mundane paper route, and it's an everyday thing, and then shit starts happening, and it's really hard to tell at first what exactly is going on, but as it unfolds, it becomes clear to me that this is going to be one of the best science fiction comic books I've ever read. It's not being held back by being a superhero tie-in or something like that. It's just its own story that gets to tell something really fun and cool and different, that is extremely different. Keep in mind, very different. Nothing like I think anyone's ever read before. However, still influenced by 80s culture. And at number 3, we've got the DC Universe Rebirth one-shot. This book, to me, is probably the most important book of 2016, because it got me back into comics, and it got a ton of people back into DC Comics, or into DC Comics in the first place, because the sales numbers for DC rose exponentially after the release of this book. Books like Batman and Suicide Squad over in the August period were selling so extremely well that there were no Marvel comics in the top 10 sellers for comic books in that month. And when there were Marvel comics in the top 10 sellers list, the months after, there were like 1 or 2. So DC really came back with Rebirth, and this book is a very good jumping on point, honestly. They're still selling it in the stores if you guys want to pick it up, or you can check it out in one of the links below. It's a 80-page book that essentially shows you where the DC universe is going from here on, and it is interesting in a way that I did not expect. When I first heard the news, I think at this point I can spoil it, that Dr. Manhattan and perhaps some other Watchmen characters are a part of the DC universe essentially at this point, I was like, why did you do that? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? However, when I read that book and I saw that they like had these seeds in the New 52 for the entire time, it makes a lot of sense, and it makes New 52 a little less bad. I don't know. It makes me really excited for what's coming, though, and that's what I think is the best part. Every time I'm reading a DC Universe book, I kind of feel like they're actually in the same universe now. A lot of times with books in the New 52 prior, they were completely out of continuity. Batman would be over here in this book, Batman would be over here in this book, and Batman would be up here in this book. And they're like, these are three different places and times, and you don't know what's what. It didn't make a lot of sense, but now Batman will be over here, and then he'll be right here, but they'll reference what happens in Batman over here. It's really cool. I really appreciate that they're finally kind of taking advantage of the fact that they have a fucking canon, and the fact that all these characters know each other. Like, if a character dies in this book, characters who were in this book, who you might not expect to actually mention it, actually mention it, because they should. They've known these characters for forever, and it makes a lot of sense, and I really appreciate that they're finally doing that, because they weren't doing that, as far as I was concerned, in New 52. But in this new DC Universe Rebirth, I'm super excited for the future of DC. So definitely pick up the DC Universe Rebirth one-shot if you guys want to get back into DC Comics, or if you want to get into DC Comics in general, because I think it's an incredible jumping on point for new readers and old readers alike. Number 2 is certainly my favorite DC book of the year. I only recently read it all, and I read it in just one straight shot. I've got 2 of the books behind me. You can guess probably what it is. Superman American Alien, written by Max Landis. And he's one of my favorite writers in general. I love a lot of his movies. I'm one of 3 people who've seen American Ultra. I fucking love that movie. If for whatever reason you end up seeing this movie, Max, I really fucking love that movie. I love Mr. Right. That movie, I love that they kind of are connected in some way with that one little line. I fucking love those 2 movies. And I love Chronicle. I love everything that I've seen pretty much from Max Landis, and this book is no exception. Finally getting to see Max Landis get to write a Superman book, for somebody who's been a fan of Max Landis for so long, is so cool. Getting to see him get to actually tell stories, and he doesn't just tell one story. So let me get into this. There's 7 issues as a part of this American Alien thing, and it's in his own universe. It's in his own Max Landis universe, where he gets to tell whatever stories he wants to. And this, for example, Lois is Asian, like, it's no mention of it, like, it's just whatever, she's Asian. Like, there's different things about this book than the regular canon from the DC universe, and I really appreciate that, because he gets to just do whatever he wants, and it's so much better. For example, like, in this book, you get to see Superman in like 7 different stages in his life. The first one, he's like a fucking kid. The second one, he's like a teenager. The third one, he's like 20. And the entire time, you get a different lesson, a different theme, and it's really, really well told in a way that people who aren't Superman fans, because there's literally 10 of you, are gonna like this book. It's just a fact. It's really well written, and it makes Superman a relatable character, and I think that's the most important thing. Superman is so unrelatable for the most part, but there are books out there that make Superman a relatable and fun and interesting character. You know, like, if you take away like just the bullshit fighting aspect of Superman, and you kind of make him a fucking human being for once, like this book does, and like Superman Birthright does, and some other Superman books that I've read, you can make Superman a really interesting character. Not just an interesting character, but one of the most interesting characters in the DC universe. And I think that's what he did here. And for just a quick thing, one of my favorite issues is the one where Clark is crash landed on a boat where everyone thinks he's Bruce Wayne. I'm not going to say anything more, but you guys can get just an idea of what that is. If you guys haven't read this book, fucking read this. If you guys don't read anything else, read my top 3. This Superman American Alien, the DC Universe one-shot, and my final book. Which is Reborn. This book completely took me by surprise and by storm. I had no idea it was coming out, and then I saw that Greg Capullo was writing it, and I saw that Mark Millar was Greg Capullo drawing it, and I saw Mark Millar writing it, and I'm a big fan of Mark Millar, a lot of his stuff. Like, I'm a huge Kick-Ass fan. One of the only comic books I've ever reviewed on this channel is Kick-Ass, and I fucking love Kick-Ass 1 and 2. I love those movies. Kick-Ass I've probably seen like a dozen times at least, so I really love that movie. And seeing this sci-fi fantasy book from Mark Millar with Greg Capullo art is really fucking cool. And probably my favorite issue I've read this entire year, just my favorite singular issue of a comic book, is Reborn #1. It has one of the most beautiful and obtuse views of death. Basically, in this book, when you die in real life, you get sent to like heaven or something. Like, it's the next life, but you spawn in as, like, you could spawn in as a fucking 10-year-old, you could spawn in as a 93-year-old if you get a really bad hand. You could spawn in as a fucking baby. It doesn't matter. You spawn in as a random age, and you don't look the same, and you live in this world that's fantasy and sci-fi. Like, they've got fairies running around, but they've also got, like, not spaceships, but futuristic cars, I guess. It's a really interesting book, and it's only on issue 3, but I've been super excited every time this book comes out. It's my favorite book that I'm reading right now. It's the most interesting, the most eccentric, the most new, original, nuanced book I've read this year, and I think you should really read it, even if you're not interested in books that aren't DC and Marvel and stuff like that. Like, take a chance on something, because me, I'm right there with you, man. Like, I don't like a lot of books that are indie books that aren't about, you know, fucking Batman and Superman fighting each other. I'm interested in those kind of books. I like Spider-Man, you know, but this book, even for a person like me who's not normally into books like that, is really loving this. So you should definitely check out Reborn. I think it's going to be one of the greatest books of the next couple of years, depending on how long it goes on. That's my list for the 2016 best comics of the year. Let me know what your guys' lists are down in the comment section if you guys have any. I'd really actually like to hear about it. But make sure to check out my top 10 movies list and my top 10 games list that'll be coming out in the next couple of days. And I hope you guys are looking forward to the new year. We might have some new videos on the channel for the first time in a couple of years. So, see you guys in the new year.